Let's
Sure.
go to the next one. We pursued a path of it seems in at least the United States and Canada, where housing is an investment and not sort of a consumption asset at this point. And that implies that we want it to grow faster than inflation. How do you see the price of housing and what are the impacts?
So I think of the last 10 years and maybe the last several decades, but certainly the last 15 years, um, as the state's inflation versus technology's deflation. So the state is propping up mortgage prices, it's bailing out GM, right? It is trying to keep the status quo intact, right? And subsidizing all of these jobs that wouldn't basically exist otherwise. And technology is trying to bring down car costs with autonomous cars and bring down shipping costs and automate this, disrupt that, bring down housing costs with drone construction and robot construction and all these things. So it's this tug of war between inflation and deflation, right? And so what that's resulted in so far is that all these things in the physical world have become more expensive, especially education and healthcare and housing, especially in not everywhere, but in blue areas, housing become expensive. And everything digital has deflated, and the combination of the two kind of evened out over the 2010s. So people were like, "Whoa, where did the inflation go?" But if you look at the graphs, some prices went way up and some went way down. And in a sense, the Fed is like upstream of all of that. It's upstream of every political issue. Medicare for all. Why? Because the Fed printed money and that led to healthcare prices going up in part. There's other factors as well. The Fed printed money and that led to all the YIMBY stuff. All the all housing went up, and the Fed printed money and that led to, among other things, education prices going up, and of course there's student loans and other things, and that was loan forgiveness. So that's kind of upstream of all this. And so where do I think it resolves? I think eventually this reaches a breaking point, and what happens is uh, physical, and we may get here by 2030 or 2040 or so on, right? But everything in the physical world can be thought of as a printout. Okay, let me explain. Obviously, you can print out a document. You do it online, you hit enter, you print it out of a printer, right? You can print out a book. Okay, less trivially, you can print out food by hitting a thing on Uber Eats or Grab, and there's a process where it comes to your door. Now, moreover, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but there are robots that do robotic agriculture. There's robots that will package things at the factory, and there's even sidewalk robots that will do robot delivery and will like bring it to you. In theory, every single step there, you could eliminate any human and have the entire thing be effectively an electromechanical process that was catalyzed by you hitting enter that prints it out and mails it to you or brings it to you, right? Every individual step I can show you robots. I'm not
Right.
sure anyone's put them all together, but you could have humanless delivery, growing and delivery of food. Okay. So you start thinking about printing out in a broader stage, right? When you think about a drone, it's like hitting enter and it's printing out, effectively a flight path or a bomb path or something like that. And if you look, there's the Grasp Lab at UPenn has done this stuff. There's like drone construction. There's stuff like that that's online. Okay, you can watch drones like assembling small buildings and so on. So in the not infinitely distant future, you will have the ability to just hit enter on a computer and have a bunch of robots snap together a prefab building with perfect speed in the rain, in 8 hours, perfect sight, all of that stuff, right? Some of them might be humanoid looking, some of them may be very non humanoid looking, but robotic construction should hyper deflate construction costs, right? And increase quality. Like everybody could have, like the fanciest pool and all this type of stuff, like the kind of environment that only a king would have, like a 150 years ago, you could have that if you had enough horizontal space, of course, right? So there's a vision of totally hyper deflating construction costs. There's another vision of uh, radically reducing your dependence on any specific place and having it all in the cloud so you can move between things. And that also reduces construction costs in another way. This is like van life and things like that. But there's like nice versions of that, like the digital nomad version. And both of those, what they do is they start commoditizing the land and reducing the impact of location, 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 right? And that should bring downward pressure on these housing prices. But I think that's might come after there's this crazy inflation upward, where, as you mentioned, they're trying to use it as an investment. In China, actually, Xi Jinping has talked about how he did not want houses to be used for investment. And actually, that's part of their policy there is to try to intentionally pop the bubble rather than having a Bear or Lehman type thing. Evergrande was like a controlled demolition where we'll see if it's successful, but they set up these so-called three red lines years ago on like, I think it's like debt to uh, debt to revenue ratio. So, some ratios like this, where companies that were above that, they wanted to kind of put the regulatory brakes. They're trying to deflate that bubble to bring the prices down because they don't believe houses should be an investment. They want them to be a utility. And then what happens? Where does it keeping up with the Joneses thing go? Ideally, it just goes to NFT land. It goes digital. Okay. And so the physical world gets super, this is the ideal. Okay. And we won't get there for a while. But with robots, the physical world should get super cheap eventually, and then all status seeking goes to the optional digital world. And you already see this. You know where you see this? You see this with phones. Because for the most part, a poor person and a rich person or a middle class person, they basically have the same phone. And the status seeking is just pushed into whether you get like the gold case iPhone, but that's just frills on the top. You can make it more expensive. Like the Apple Watch is a perfect example of this. Literally, the money is just like pure Veblen good, like signaling stuff at the top, and it's completely optional. The utility is the baseline, right? So that's, I think, a vision we want to shoot for, where everybody has the utility of a house. You can construct it, and then your positional red queen, elite on elite, stupid but human things. That's all just digital NFT type stuff, which can happen online in a harmless way.
Do you